So, Lord, we thank you for what you want to do. We're talking about holiness. Holiness is possible. That is the name of this message tonight for those of you note takers out there. And I think if you've been on a retreat before, or if you've been in like a youth group or a Christian circle, you've probably been told you can be a saint. You can be holy. You're just like these people. If you've ever been to like camp, even we have the saint monologues, the processions where like they kind of act out different saints and share with you. And it's like, okay, you've been told this over and over again. But I often see a block in people's hearts that we don't truly believe that that's what the Lord has for us. So I'm excited to dive in. Can somebody tell me what time I have until? Yeah. Okay, what time is it? 7:40. Great. Let's do this. I've been passionate about holiness for a long time. I remember I would highly recommend this book for any of you. One of my bosses wrote it, Dan Demete. It's called Holiness Revolution. And I will tell you, as an English major, that I was very disappointed in whoever edited it because there was definitely some issues. However, it was anointed. I read that book before I knew about CYSC, before I knew who Dan was, and I started working here. And you guys, I wept and I wept and I wept as I read it because I was like, finally somebody else that's on this earth at the same time that I am that understands that we are called to radical holiness. It's not just that it's possible, but we are called to it. As Christians that said, Jesus, I want to follow you, that is our call. And that's amazing. And it can be so scary because we can be like, I have tried everything. What is going on? But no, like the Lord has the grace for you. He wants to teach you how to do it. And so tonight I want hope. I want hope to rise up in us. Like I just said, I'm an English major, so when I write talks, and I don't think I've ever shared this, I write thesis statements, and I'm going to read you the thesis statement of this talk, okay? It's a kind of a low-level thesis statement, so don't judge me here. Each of us is called to a level of holiness that will change the world, and it is possible through Jesus Christ, okay? Each of us is called to a level of holiness that will change the world, and it is possible through Jesus Christ. And changing the world can have a lot of meanings. That doesn't mean everyone knows your name. That doesn't mean you start a ministry that thousands and thousands of people come to. But you saying yes to Jesus leaves an impenetrable mark on the world. And that's exciting. On this, I have let's see. Am I ready to go to this? It's interesting because we're made for this, we search for it everywhere. Because we are made for holiness, we are made for greatness, we look for it everywhere. And so if you look at the most popular books, most popular movies, they're always about like the same thing. It's about somebody going from nothing to something. It's what people are so fascinated with. And so I just have some examples here. Pardon me if any of these offend you. Okay, next. Okay, no, you don't want to go to the next slide? Oh, yeah. Okay, oh. Right? This little boy who's orphaned, who doesn't know who he is, who's abused by his aunt and uncle. In walks Hagrid after all those weird letters, are coming flying through his door. They go and hide. And Hagrid's like, you're a wizard. That's not what he sounds like at all. But that happens. And it's amazing. We follow this story, like one of the highest franchising book series and movie series in history. Captain America. This scrawny little guy who gets put in some sort of lab experiment and becomes a hero, right? Okay. We got Obama. One of the reasons, well, regardless of how you feel about who he was as a president, one of the reasons that he was so captivating by so many was because they're like, you're like me. You didn't have anything. You came from nothing, and now look what you're doing. He related to people like that. That was why he was so captivating. Let's look at, remember the Titans, right? The underdog. We love the underdog stories. We love watching people make something. Hidden Figures. Raise your hand if you've seen Hidden Figures. Awesome movie, right? This woman who, there was a lot of things against her, right? There was so many things going on at this time. She should not have, like at NASA, if you even saw the movie, all of the women, particularly black women, were put in a different room down the hall. And this woman was the reason why the moon was able to be reached and that they were able to come back into the world, okay, onto Earth. And we get so captivated. All these things, like these are very, like, People know them. Most of us knew these stories, and there's a reason why. There you go. It's because that's all of our destiny. That's all of our destiny. Because what Kara shared with us last night, that captivating story of a God who came into our brokenness, that came into the sin of the world, that destroyed that wall, guess what? All of us are called to be a part of that story. All of us are called to be part of the salvific mission of God. He doesn't have to use us, but he chooses to. And because he chose to, he wrote it onto our hearts. He wrote it onto our hearts to desire that. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I just want you to think back. I think a lot of us as kids had this strong desire, or maybe even when you first met the Lord, this strong desire, whether it was like to be holy or if it was just to be great at something. I think of Gina with the ice skating, right? Wanting to be an Olympic figure skater. Maybe it's becoming, or being in the NFL. Maybe people were like, I'm going to be the next LeBron James. Whatever it is, we had that desire, and often it gets squashed out of us because we feel like we failed, or we feel like we didn't do well enough. We feel like we just can't get there. And so I'm also going to talk about some saints real quick. Some young saints. These are people who felt that tug, that felt that call, and chose to say, okay, this is everything. So I didn't know these people very well until I started researching this past week. This is Venerable Maria Carmen. She passed away when she was 9. Raise your hand if you've heard of her. Yeah, I had not, so you guys are really Catholic. She was sick from birth. She received her first communion at age 2 because, the bishop at the time was like, hey, we don't know how long these kiddos are going to live. You should just give them communion as early as possible. And her mom said that from that time that she received her first Holy Communion, she started growing in holiness. A 2-year-old, okay? Do you know any 2-year-olds? Okay? And her mom was like, oh, no, she knew the Lord. Right, what? We're like, you're not even at the age of reason. That's amazing. And so when the poor would come to her home and would ring the bell, she would have coins. I don't know if you remember as a kid when you'd have any sort of money. I'd get $1. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. I'm going to Dollar Tree. And I had a money club to convince all my siblings to give me their money too, okay? I really like money. But so she would literally give away all of her little savings, any gifts that she got, any pennies to the poor, and then she'd be like, ring again, so that my mom will give you money too, because she just wanted them to be helped. She wrote in her little journal, okay, I gave myself to God today in the Chapel of the Good Shepherd, April 6, 1939. That wasn't words that were being used commonly, okay? Giving your life to Jesus, that wasn't something that was being used. He put that on her heart. She didn't have to go searching for it, listen to the best podcast. He put that on her heart. Now, when she was in Spain, and there was a lot of political strife going on, and her father was actually killed, was assassinated by the government. And the father, she came from a holy family. The dad told the mom, hey, tell the kids that their dad gave their life for the holiness of Spain so that they could be Catholic in Spain. And Maria found out that her dad was assassinated and she was sick and dying and she knew it. And she's like, thank you, God. I give my life. I offer my life and all my suffering for my dad's assassin. And on his deathbed, but this is the thing, you guys, on his deathbed, he actually converted. I don't know about you, but I've had people that I've been praying for and offering things for since I was in middle school, and they still have not converted. She gave her life, and you guys, we don't, not everyone knows about her. It's not like they were saying throngs of people were at her funeral, like some of the saints that we hear about. But she made an impact on a soul who, would not have made it, did not know the Lord. Next we have, and she died again when she was 9. This is Blessed Laura Vichuna. I think I pronounced that correct. Anybody heard of her? She's from Chile. She lived until she was 13 years old. And her dad died when she was young. Her parents didn't know the Lord. She wasn't Christian. And her mom had to move. And when they moved, she found a man who was willing to basically take them under their wing if the mom gave away everything. If she just did whatever, became a servant or a concubine of this man, like he would take care of them. And so that's what the mom did. And they put the little Laura and her sister into a Salesian school with Salesian missionaries. And so Laura heard the gospel and fell in love with God and became like, started going to sacraments and different things. And again, she was pretty sickly. At the time, there wasn't medicine for what she had. And she had heard the verse, no greater love than to lay down one's life for a friend. And she knew that her mom's soul was in grave danger. And so again, she chose to lay her life down. She's like, okay, I will give my life for my mom, that my mom would come to be with you. And her mom was with her in her last moments of life. And her mom saw the joy of Jesus in her eyes and gave her life. Not only that, but the school was so transformed by the way that Laura loved and as the way that she suffered. And even the sisters, these missionary Salesian sisters, that like this whole movement started, and that, like a new love for Jesus was birthed. Because she said, okay, here's my suffering. Next we have, she was 13 years old when she died. This is Manuel Fodera. He was actually born in 2001. He's in Sicily, Italy. And this little boy, so he died when he was, did I write this one down? He was 9 years old, and he died. And he got cancer when he was like 5. And he started going to the chapel at the hospital and asking his family to pray the rosary with him every single day because he had a burning love for souls. Like he didn't even have anyone particular he was offering things up for, but every single day. And he was a normal little boy. He would like miss playing with his friends at the hospital. He would like play with the different toys it talks about. But he had, like, as he began to be with Jesus more in his suffering, it said that he experienced Jesus as a very close, intimate friend. He started like feeling Jesus by his side. And he had this burning love for souls. See how he didn't have to do anything? It was this love for Jesus. And so he ended up, again, dying when he was 9 years old. But it's like there's this whole movement coming from Sicily, obviously, that are so captivated by this little boy. So many stories of people that are like, oh my gosh, I found faith when I saw him again. Because of he didn't start a movement. He wasn't a missionary. He loved the Lord, and he let the Lord love him. Lastly, somebody we all probably know and love. And I chose young ones before you guys because they were holy and they didn't do anything. I think sometimes we look at these saints, they're so holy and they did so many things. They literally were with these younger ones, they were with Jesus, and they offered their suffering, they offered their joys to him. Blessed Pierre was awesome. Look at him with his friends. He's in the middle there. And if you don't know much about him, I forgot to write how old he was when he died. Anybody know? 20-something. It was awesome. When I lived in Minnesota last year, and my good friend Gina came to visit me once, so it was amazing. But there was this Catholic, what do you call it? Theater company in Minnesota. Why? I do not know, but they were so good. And we went to a play about Blessed Pierre Giorgio, and I was so fired up after. It was so well done. You guys, he was so normal. Because they used like all his letters and stuff and accounts of his life to make this long play. And he was so normal. He went to the mountains with his friends. He messed around with his friends. He joked with them. But he'd like hide these letters in his drawers, and he kept track of all of the people that he was giving money to for medicine. And he would do crazy things, stay up crazy hours. He would sleep on the floor to offer it up for the poor. He'd be in the freezing cold. He decided to walk back from a train station because he gave his fare to somebody who needed food, and then he gave his jacket to somebody on the streets. It's bitter cold. He's carrying all his stuff, and he was willing to suffer that because he loved so much. People are like, don't you realize these people don't matter? He was literally like beat up by the very people he was serving. He didn't complain about it. His family was against him. His family was like, well, you are crazy. He stood for Catholic social teaching very strongly, and his family was actually not on the same page as him at all, but he would like wake up and sneak out of his window to go to mass. And his family, like through his death and everything, ended up converting, but like thousands of people showed up to his funeral. Thousands of people. He was taking care of like so many people. He was the reason that so many people were like getting well, that families were able to get back on their feet. And why? Because he was like a social justice warrior. He encountered the love of Jesus, and he kept going back to him and back to him again. And it hurt. It was not easy, but he went back again and again and again. So I share those stories, and I know Kwang shared some too, because I chose saints that are a little more recent. This is for today. This is not for early church. Radical holiness is for today. It's funny. I like when I was writing this, I'm like, I'm preaching to myself right now. Like I need to hear these words. Two stories that I had heard before came to my mind. One was of one that Father Mike Schmitz shared about this underground church in China. I don't know if you guys know much about communist China, but essentially there is, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but a man who was being tortured for his faith. He endured like gruesome torture, and he wouldn't say where the priest was. He wouldn't say what was going on because he wanted to protect the Lord, and he knew that Jesus needed to get to as many places in China. And so they would torture him again and again. So finally he ends up coming to America. They were able to save him from this like 3-month-long torture, bring him to America, and he's so amazed. He's like, there's daily mass multiple times a day and confession and adoration and all of these things, and he's going. And a year goes by, and he's like, he starts just going to mass on Sunday. And then another year goes by, he goes on Christmas and Easter. Third year goes by, he doesn't even believe in God anymore. There's a quote from a very similar situation. I'm not going to tell the whole story. If you want to know it later, you can ask me. But it's this quote by a missionary who was in a similar situation. And he said, there is a satanic lullaby playing even in churches across the West. Why else are we so lethargic in the midst of such relative freedom and unprecedented prosperity? I'm going to say that again. There's a satanic lullaby playing even in churches across the West. Why else are we so lethargic in the midst of such relative freedom and unprecedented prosperity? And I don't say that to scare us, but you guys, we're being tricked. Spiritual warfare is real, and I'm not saying anything to frighten us, but Satan does not want you to be holy. He's going to trick us. So I want to tell you what holiness is not like. Holiness isn't stopping at these places. Holiness isn't, okay, I pray 10 minutes a day and I'm kind of zoning in and out, but I'll get better later. And like that's just is what it is right now. And we just don't think about God the rest of our day. Holiness is not saying that we love God and his people and then gossiping and slandering and ignoring and leaving out other people. Holiness is not excusing rudeness, old habits, anger because it's who I am and it's part of my personality. Holiness is not living in despair and hopelessness and just expecting it to never end. Holiness is not never seeing anything change around us or in us. Jesus changes things. Jesus changes everything. And I'm not saying that like you're going to go from 0 to 100. And I'm not saying this out of like meanness. I am on a journey, you guys. My friend Andrea out here, Andrea's in my small group. She knows. I show up and I'm like, I just don't want to pray. I'm a missionary. I've been living this for a long time. I'm not saying that we're going to be perfect, but we have got to know that we are going up a mountain, okay? Sometimes on a mountain, you go down a little bit, then you go back up and you go down, but we are going up the mountain, and we need our people around us, and we need to know where we are heading. We need to know that the goal isn't just believing in Jesus and trying our best to get in the 5 minutes of prayer a day. He has more. He has more. I was talking to my little sister on the phone the other day, because I was really struggling with prayer, and I was telling her, and she's like, you know, MarySarah, you gave this talk a few years ago, and I say this to myself all the time. And I'm like, what did I say? And she's like, you said that God doesn't want you to just white knuckle it through your prayer and like just say, I've just got to get this done, and I'm just going to keep disciplining myself and do it. He wants you to enjoy it and be in relationship with him and love it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I've heard that before, but it hit me different. I'm like, whoa, I said that? What was going on? I'm like, that's amazing. Like, you guys, it's fun to be a Christian. It's amazing to be a Christian. I love that I get to go out, and sometimes I'm at a gas station and the Lord says, hey, that guy needs his arm to be prayed with. And I'm like, okay, hey, you've got arm pain. And his arm moves for the first time, and he's Muslim and doesn't know the name of Jesus. That's freaking amazing. I'm scared to do that. I can't do that on my own. I have no idea how that happens ever. But he wants to do it, you guys. So young saints, we're called to change the world. We are called to change the world. I'm going to look at this really quick, and then I'm going to share a few testimonies. These were quotes that just hit me, so I'm just going to share them with you guys too. If you will look into your own heart in complete honesty, you must admit that there is one and only one reason why you are not a saint. You don't wholly want to be one. What parts of our heart, let's look tonight, what parts of my heart don't want to be a saint? You cannot be a half saint. You must be a whole saint or not at all. There's no gray area. There is growth and there is walking in the right direction, but there's no feet on either side of the fence. You don't become a saint by comparing yourself to a sinner. Me looking at how the rest, even the good people who don't know the Lord, me comparing myself to them, that's not going to cut it because he has more than we can imagine. Whatever you thought your level of holiness could be, it's greater than that. He has greater plans than you have for yourself. Okay, so when I was in high school, I didn't know how to pray every day. I didn't know that was a thing. I literally had nobody modeling it for me. I had no youth group. I had no friends that were Catholic. I had my siblings and my family who were awesome, and that's it. But you guys, I love Jesus. I had encountered him at a young age. When I was really little, I felt the Lord literally calling me to give away all of my toys, sell them all, and give the money to the church, and I did, and I convinced my siblings to do it too. And I'm telling you this because he put it on our hearts at a young age. I would wake up early every day at 6 a.m. to play mass because I didn't know what daily prayer was. So I'm like, let's go to mass. And me and my sister, I'd make her be the priest. I would sit in my bed and I'm like, Jesus. And I literally did not know nobody was telling me what prayer was, okay? But he was doing something in me. So I went to school. When I went to school, I loved Jesus so much. And so I started asking him what he wanted me to do. And you guys, I just shared with my friends, cross-country practice. I'm just telling them about who Jesus is. He loves you. He loves you. You guys, they started coming to mass with me. I started an FCA club at my high school. I wasn't really an athlete, but you know what? That's what they had available. And we started having talks. You guys, I had multiple people come through RCIA. I had multiple people who were on the brink of despair that came in and they met the love of Jesus. I wasn't praying. I had no community. You guys, I literally, at my senior year, I was president of, what is that thing called? Student council. And we had a little student council day retreat. And I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I didn't know what prophecy was. I didn't know about getting words for people. I didn't know that was a thing that happened today. And so we went into this retreat and I got to lead a session. And I'm like, what should I do? And the Lord's like, okay, you're just going to look at everyone and you're going to say whatever I tell you to say about them. And I was like, that sounds like a terrible idea. But I was like, well, Lord, I love you, so we're just going to try it, I guess. And I was sweating. Okay, I'm like, oh my gosh. And there was 150 people that came through my session. We had different things. Every single, you guys, weeping. People were just weeping. I didn't say the name of Jesus once because it was a public school. I wasn't allowed to. But, I mean, they all knew that I love Jesus. But at the end of that day, something had shifted in our school. People were coming up to me how did you know that? How did you know that about me? What is going on? You guys, Jesus will give you everything you need. Okay, I'm not going to keep going. What's my conclusion? Okay, number one, don't let each other settle for less. I told you those stories not because I think I'm amazing. I was like, we need a lot of help in high school. It's because in my brokenness and in what I did not have, he did so much. You guys know better than I did. To whom much is given, much is expected. Hold each other up. Don't let each other settle for less. And it all comes from a loving God. The times in my life where I was allowing him to move through me the most were the times that I was most in love with him. And I'm not talking about the feeling of love, but I'm talking about the choice and the doing of love. Okay, so you don't have to be like, okay, what's my to-do list now? I can hear some of your minds already. Okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I know I'm supposed to do this, and this is how things are going to... Nope. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You say, I will be obedient to you, Jesus. Holiness comes from obedience. Radical holiness comes from radical obedience. Okay? So, I'm 3 minutes over. So, that's all I have for you. Jesus loves you. He's going to come in tonight. And guess what? It doesn't really matter what I said. It's what he does. Let's open ourselves. Andy, do I give this to you now? You all rock.